Hey there guys, this is Slamsaron, aka YouTube's Tasuke, and I'm going to put my reviewer pants on one more time to talk about a little game I finished recently. A little game called VIII, Lacrimosa of Donna for the PS4. That's the version that I played. I know it's also on the Vita, PC, and recently the Nintendo Switch, but I played the PS4 version, and this game has a little bit of a localization controversy with it. I will say that obviously I did play it after that patch came out. I'll go ahead and say that, but I'll go into more detail about what I think about that whole thing. Also, I'll be talking about this on my podcast. I'm recording this before I talk about it on the podcast. I'm actually recording it before I do the Dynasty Warriors 9 one that you'll have seen by now, but wanted to do it while it was fresh on my mind, because as of this recording, it's been like a day or so since I finished it. So, yeah, I figured I'd go ahead and review it while it's, on my brainy brain. But, like I said, I played the PS4 version, and graphically it looked nice. It obviously this isn't like a super hyper-realistic game, but, it looked actually pretty nice. I liked a lot of the character designs. I thought Adol looked pretty cool, and I liked Dogi's little goatee. I'm a little confused on where this takes place. It seems to take place in between 5 and 6. Based on a few things, some character interactions that you get with like the different characters you talk to on the island in Castaway Village, and also the fact that at the beginning of the game, the sword you start with is apparently the strongest sword from VIII. Also the fact that they mentioned that Dogi and Adol haven't gone to Altago yet, which for me was the first one I noticed, because I haven't played VIII yet, so I wasn't able to like recognize. Like, oh, hey, this is his sword from, VIII. Or, it also, like, the stuff with some of the VI references involving the Ramen Empire. That kind of threw me off a little bit as well. But for me, the thing that I noticed first was the Altago thing, but I'm getting kind of ahead of myself here. The story of VIII, I guess I'll go into that. After finishing up the graphics, like it looked fine. But, yeah, the story of VIII is that Adol's on a ship with his buddy, his bro dog, Dogi. They're working on the ship, and Adol gets called into the captain's office, Captain Barbaros, and he's like, hey, have you ever heard of the Isle of Saren? He's like, no, I haven't. Well, it's this isle that, like, no one's ever returned from. And lo and behold, a giant sea monster attacks them, and their ship gets all banged up, and they wash ashore on the Isle of Saren. So a large chunk of this game is sort of finding castaways. I say a large chunk, but we're like the beginning, and also mapping the island. That's also another. You have a choice of, because obviously in this game, Adol being a silent protagonist for the most part, he does talk a little bit, and he actually has some fully voiced lines that you get to pick from. Usually big moments. Like the final battle, they let him say like a full thing, but that's pretty and that was pretty cool. And in the beginning, he has like just some textual things where like they highlight it differently, like I think it's like a green or something, and other chances where he gets to talk in air quotes, but for the most part he is a silent protagonist, and you get to choose what he says. And some of them are based on previous East games, like when Captain Barbaros is all like, hey, we need you to make a map, you have a choice of saying, oh, I worked as a map maker, so, I think the word is cartographer, I believe. I don't remember the exact words, but you get to say that. And of course I said that because I played VIII, so I remember like, hey, he made a map. So that was cool. So it's actually kind of like Memories of Celceta a little bit, which obviously, as you can tell, the gameplay is... It's pretty similar. It builds off of that, but obviously the camera, you can move around the camera. The perspective is a little different. I think the models are even a little more fleshed out and maybe even taller. You can also jump in this game. So it kind of reminded me of Kingdom Hearts a little bit, but it is more or less based on the E7 or Memories of Celceta engine, or gameplay style, or whatever you want to call it. And so yeah, you and your crew that you start. It's still like a team of 3. The first person who joins your party is a character named Laxia. She's the female, or she's one of the females rather. She's pretty cool. She uses a rapier. She's one of the stabby stab types. And then sort of the quote-unquote Dogi counterpart. I'm going to kind of refer to these characters as sort of like counterparts of each other's or like alternatives of each other. Sahad is the other character you get right after Laxia. Not right after, but you do get him relatively close. He uses a giant anchor that basically turns into like a hammer / axe as you go through. And I really liked him. Like I said, he's kind of, in terms of like party members, he is kind of like the Dogi. He's sort of like that large blue-haired guy. I think they kind of designed him that way in mind to sort of be like, hey, this is your Dogi. That's the way I see it. Obviously, Dogi is part of the game, and he fights a little bit. You don't actually get to control him. You can give him like some knuckles as like a gift, because you can give all your party members gifts, and that's pretty cool. And I gave Dogi, his gift, and he obviously really liked me. He's like, gee, thanks, buddy. Speaking of which, I'll jump in real quick. The voice acting, I think, is pretty good here. They got Patrick Seitz, I think, is probably the best Dogi, so it's going to be really hard to play through E6 knowing that it's not Patrick Seitz voicing him. And Bryce Papenbrook does a great job doing Adol as well. And the cast overall is filled with some pretty good actors. Sahad sounded pretty good. The character Humble sounded good. Kira Buckland does Alexia. I thought she did a good job there as well. Donna, who's another character who shows up later, I liked her as well. She had sort of like a really wholesome kind of voice. Captain Barbaros is apparently voiced by Mark Durason, or Mark Durason, however you say his name, but he's the voice of Guts in Berserker. He used to be, and I found that really surprising. So I think I could hear, like, that voice sounds really like, it's one of those things where it doesn't sound familiar, but it sounds so distinct that you feel like you kind of heard it before. But it was pretty cool. And also going back to Adol talking a little bit, when you stand around, he'll be all like, let's go, it's not my nature to sit around, I'm an adventurer, dabba dabba deeba dabba. And he actually has a bit more, his voice has a bit, or his portrayal, Bryce Papenbrook's portrayal as Adol, it sounds like he's trying to make Adol sound a little more mature. I don't know, like, his performance as Adol, like, when he actually, like, says more than, like, one or two things, you can tell, like, yeah, that's, like, the Adol voice, but it's different from, like, Asbel, for example. And you can definitely tell a difference between this voice and some of the other voices that he's done. But yeah, I really like Sahad. He's the one who, if you see the screenshot, is always talking about taking a shit, which in the retranslation, I think he only says, like, shit once, and he uses it as, like, well, crap. He instead says dump. He's like, I took a dump. And he talks like a pirate, like, I just took a big dump. And, he passes gas, like, a few times. I like, the first one is when, like, I just kind of, try to be honest with myself. Rip. And then, like, Adol, he has you have a choice of being all like, did you just, like, that, which is the one that I chose, because I was trying to kind of play Adol pretty straight. But then the joke one was like, I think I know you a lot better now. Which, that kind of surprised me. Or rather, what really surprised me about that scene was, like, Laxia, because she's a noble, story reasons as to, why that may be in air quotes, but she's pretty proud, and it's like, oh, how uncouth, and all that stuff. And it's funny, like, she doesn't even bat an eye, and it's like, you can kind of tell they're sort of like this, what the hell have I gotten myself into kind of thing. But she gets pretty good development. There's another character named Sir Carlin that you rescue. He's pretty much like the pompous, like, I am the one who is the most important person here, kind of mentality. And thankfully he dies, or does he? But we'll get to that later. But Laxia, in contrast to Sir Carlin, for that example, she kind of lightens up a bit, and she kind of softens up to Adol in particular. She reveals a lot of stuff to him. You could almost say she's kind of like the main squeeze. I'd argue that another character named Donna, who you've seen in the cover art, and if you've played this game, and of course the name of the game is Lacrimosa of Donna. I think in Japan it's called Tears of Dana. I think the Lacrimosa is something that also comes up in the game. I'll go more into that as we go through the story, and I'll go through the different characters that you get, because you do get like 3 other characters, all of them kind of serving different purposes. But basically, the way the archetypes in this game works, that you've got your slash person, which is Adol, and then you've got your pierce person, which is Laxia, and then you've got your bash person, which is Sahad. But I didn't even really use any other character, unless I had to, like story reasons. I had to use Dana, but also I would occasionally play as like Sahad or Laxia, and a couple of other characters. I'll go ahead and say there was a character named Hummel who I thought was pretty cool. I'll go into his personality and whatnot when we get to him, but there's this. I will say this though. I know I'm kind of jumping around a lot here, so I'll go ahead and say I feel like in both Memories of Celceta and E7, there's a character who I would consider an alternative Adol, for lack of any other purpose. In E7, it was the character Geis, who was from E6, and then from Memories of Celceta, it was Frida, who basically played like Geis. But they were both considered slash types, and I kind of consider them like the alternate Adol. It makes more sense when it's a character like Geist, though, who is similar to Adol, and it's supposed to kind of be like Adol's rival in a way. I haven't finished E6, but I remember he's all like, when he shows up, he's all like, I'm Geist. I'm an adventurer like you, but I'm not too proud to be a mercenary, all that stuff. I'll probably bring that line up again when I eventually review E6 in like a million years. But, yeah, so basically, the plot at this moment is that you have to find all of the castaway members and bring them back to the village. And, they all, like, do different things. Like, you can get this one chick named Dina, who's, like, the shopkeeper. And the shop's kind of weird in this game. I'll try to demonstrate it in the footage if I can remember to do it. But instead of, like, paying for gold, you, like, trade stuff. And it makes sense. That's actually one thing that I thought was pretty good about them. Like, they didn't, like, incorporate, like, oh, these are, like, sand dollars or whatever, which that would have been kind of funny if they do that, sand dollars. Or, like, that's your gold. But, you trade materials. And thankfully, in the monster menu, in, like, the... you have, like, a list of, like, monsters you fought and, like, ingredients you get. So you don't have to, like, look up an FAQ to find everything. You can just go to there and be like, oh, that's where I got this. And that's pretty useful. And you end up, for food, for example, for certain things at least, you end up meeting this little kid named Raja. And he ends up becoming a farmer for you. So you can get some seeds. And I think I found all the seeds. There aren't too many. But, like, I think it's mainly to kind of coincide with this chick named Meralda, I believe, who makes juice, which heals your HP, but it resets your meal counter, where, like, if you eat a meal that you can cook, like in most RPGs. I guess Tales. I don't know if I'm pretty sure other RPGs do it, but I don't play too many, as you can tell. You have, like, a little meter. So, like, maybe, like, if, for example, you want to eat another meal, but you already have, like, your meter going. Because while this meter is going, you can't, like, eat another meal. Like, oh, we're full, we can't eat anymore. So you have to either just wait for it to go and, like, risk getting injured. Like, if you're doing this, do it during a boss fight. But you can then drink the juice if you want to go ahead and, like, reset that meter so you can take in another health. Like, this is particularly useful if you ate a meal that has, like, a perk to it that you don't really need right now. Like, if you have like something that heals, like, for example, 2,000 HP, and all it does is, like, have it to where your SP regains a lot, or, like, a little bit, which, that's cool and all, but, like, getting back SP to do, like, your special moves, your arts, if you will, that's not too hard to do, even if you're fighting a boss, in my opinion. So if you wanted to, like, just do that and maybe, like, eat another one because you're low on health, and maybe you want to do one that, like, raises your attack and defense, like, really high, or it gives you, like, health regen or something, or makes you immune to disease or something. So you can do that. I never used it. Most of the healing items in this game are, like, the fruits and stuff you can get, and, like, you can eat the ingredients as well. They don't do much, but you also get a little bottle potion thingy where after you drink it, you get an empty bottle, and you can refill it if you have the ingredients. You can get more bottles, kind of like Dark Souls, I guess. In this game, also lets you roll, like in 7 and Mirrors of Silseta. I guess you can say that Lacrimosa of Donna is the Dark Souls of the E series. No, I'm just kidding. Like I said, it kind of gave me more of a Kingdom Hearts vibe overall. It's not as like flowy and like jumpy as Kingdom Hearts and combo-y as Kingdom Hearts, but it's a little similar. It feels, honestly, like lately I've been kind of in a bit of an Ys kick, and I've been actually got an Ys figure, and I showed my buddy, and he had never heard of it, and I said, oh, it's kind of like Zelda. I've been sort of describing Ys like Zelda a little, because I feel like structurally they're kind of similar. Obviously, they're two different kinds of games, and very different. But I feel like both of them being kind of like adventure games, and adventures is that like you're going on an adventure, not like action adventure, but like you're going on a quest. Like I would call, like to me, like Ys I think can be best described as an adventure RPG. You could always categorize it in different ways. If you look at specific games like you know, the Ark and Nepetium, Oath and Felghana, then Ys Origin, you could call that maybe the platforming RPG, which that's one of the reasons why I was excited that you were going to get the jump button, though unfortunately it doesn't let you like jump a lot. Like you can jump over and jump on certain stuff, but you can't like you can't like jump everywhere. Like there are some invisible walls, some of them in places that they really have no place being, like on the starting boat that you're on. Like you should be able to jump off of the railing to get to like the base of the deck. Like there's no reason why you can't do that in areas to where like you could easily just like jump off and get to an area quicker, but it's like, why don't they let you do that? You know, it's bullshit. It's bullshit is what it is. But yeah, so, and there are other castaways as well, like Kathleen, who's my waifu. She's the this blacksmith, and she can upgrade your weapons, which is pretty cool. And there's a little quest that you have to do where you have to get orichalcum for her. And it's part of the main story to like increase the weapon so that they can fight the monsters on there for story reasons. But basically, yeah, in the beginning you're just kind of going through and trying to find you know, castaways and whatnot. And you'll camp at certain areas to like take a break, and that's you know, the scene. That's like the first time they show Sahad passing gas. You know, I think there's another one where like he passes gas, and like I can see it come, like he's like, oh, I'll make my tumbler rumble, and then he passes gas, and he's right near Kathleen, and she just like ellipses like hardcore. I'm just like, damn. But yeah, Kathleen is my waifu. She is the ultimate waifu. EO is also pretty cool. I believe she's only exclusive to the PC, Switch, and PS4 versions, I think, because the Vita version is the first one that came out. But yeah, that's a different subject. Like I said, I played the PS4 version. There were times where I kind of wish I had waited to get the Switch version just on the ground so I could play it like on the go in my bed while like I'm about to go to sleep or something. Play a little bit before bed and then go sleepers for the next day. But I'm glad that I got it on PS4 because it looks really nice, and you know, I like my PlayStation. Yeah, so you do that, and when you camp, Adol's been having dreams about some chick, and he's like, what the fuck is going on? And I was pretty honest about it. I didn't like, you had the option of saying it's nothing. I don't know what would happen if you said that. This game was pretty big on kind of being mean to me for my choices on what making Adol say stuff. I'll get into that in a little bit, because there's actually something that I thought was actually really cool story-wise. Because again, they're on an island, so like there's a little bit of stuff. But at this point, you have a few amount of castaway members, and it's at a point where they have to go back for some reason. I think it might have been during like a raid, because they introduced this thing called like raid battles, where like basically monsters try to attack the base, and you have to defend it, and you get points and whatnot. Depending on how many castaway members you have, like they'll do like special attacks and stuff, all that good stuff. And so while Adol's being like, what the hell's going on here? I'm probably missing some details because it's kind of been a little bit since I was at this early point in the game. But yeah, so you go back there, and there seems to be a murder going on. They said that they said that someone, I think they said like Captain Barbaros got hurt. Someone got hurt or someone was killed, and they're like, who the fuck is killing people? And so they have to like investigate. And I actually thought this was really cool. It added like a spooky effect to it, which I thought was kind of cool. And I actually was sort of getting into it a little bit, like, oh, I wonder who the bad guys. I had kind of a guess. It's right after you get the character Licked, who's really kind of wimpy. So obviously he's like he and Hummel, who's the character I mentioned before, who you see him. And I guess I can kind of segue into the controversy a little bit since we're talking about dialogue so much real quick. Apparently the original translation of this game was not really that high quality. This game was localized by NIS America instead of Xseed. So it was a bit... I was a little worried at first just because I didn't want there to be too many differing like lore and keywords change just on the grounds of it being translated differently. That's sort of a similar mindset as to, you know, what Xseed was doing with Ark Nepishtim when they brought it over to the PC. Obviously, they didn't want to just use Konami's version. They wanted to translate it themselves. And they were nice about it. It was like, you know, even while it was good, you know, it's different than what we want to do. And, of course, they had been working on the E-Series for a while now, so they kind of had a different sort of approach with it. But apparently the localization was not that good, and I didn't see anything on it. And I'm thinking, like, well, if they're going to retranslate it, I might as well just wait. Because they said, like, hey, we're sorry, we're going to retranslate it, and we will have this translation built into the PC version when it comes out. Because they had also delayed that as well. I'm like, okay, cool. And they would do, like, updates, and they say, like, oh, all the voice actors basically had to re-record their lines. And I could kind of see it. Though, when I actually started playing the game, there was some dialogue that was kind of like, I felt like Laxia, it kind of makes a little bit of sense, but you meet a character named Rakota, I'll go ahead and say that, and she's a child. She's a well-read child, but I felt like it was still kind of weird to hear her speak in such a way that it almost kind of sounded like they were trying really hard to like make it really fancy sounding. And one of the issues that I had with the game's script was during, like, you know, the text, like when they say, like, they waited until so and so was ready to fix up the weapons, and they sort of novelized it a little bit, meaning that they wrote it kind of like you can't act, that like there's no like visual context at all, like with bated breath. They could not wait to get to the mountain. They were so excited. Saha was jumping up and down, being all like, "I'm so happy," and it's just like, you know, we don't need that. We can see it, and that's probably one of my issues with the game is like I really think the script really improved, because I did watch a video comparing the first time they meet Hummel, and I do think the script was changed for the better. I do feel like a lot of characters, like, it's really, I think I might be kind of exaggerating a little bit, because thinking about, like, you know, with Rakota, it kind of makes a little bit of contextual sense. Hummel was fun to listen to. Sahad I really liked listening to, but Adol obviously didn't talk that much, and Dogi I liked, but I felt like a lot of characters weren't really that stylized, and not that I was really expecting them to be stylized, but everyone kind of, I felt like it was kind of like a lot of characters didn't really have like really sort of distinct personalities. I felt like you had to like really kind of listen to hear it. You could see it obviously, like you know, you see another character named Olga. She's pretty stern, but like there were certain characters that like I felt like, you know, I felt like Sahad and characters like Sahad and Hummel and like Dogi a little bit were probably the most interesting characters to like listen to them like talk and to read their dialogue, because everyone else I felt like didn't really have very strong diction. I think is sort of the fact of the matter. Sir Carlin, obviously, you know, him being pompous, he's not really fun to listen to anyway. But Laxia's butler that you meet later on, she was alright. And I think later on, I think it's similar to, I haven't done this video yet, but I think it's kind of similar to Heart Sar a little bit, where I think they did actually like rework everything, but I think maybe they probably felt like, well, here we probably don't have to do too much, so they probably didn't like break their backs like as they shouldn't, because you know, retranslating an entire game, it's like they did that really quickly, and you know, they're awesome for it. And I think it's a good example, or it shows a good example that like, hey, you know, we can do this too, you know. But yeah, and my other issues with the writing are mainly, I think, is more just a general writing issue. I didn't see these original scenes in the original version before the retranslation, but one of the very first scene where Adol and Dogi are on the boat. This one line, Dogi says like, he's talking about like, oh, sure nice of them to have us work while we board the ship, and Dogi says, they got me doing cargo, and they've got you being a sailor. And I'm just like, that's not I didn't like that line at all, because for one thing, it's very clearly a line to let the audience know this is what they're doing. It was just so obvious that that's what they were doing. So they didn't even try to like cloak it like contextually to make it sound like a real sentence. 2, Adol already knows he's a sailor because it was the job he was given. You don't need to tell him, Dogi. And 3, I just think it was just poorly done. Like, I would have said something like, oh man, working in the cargo hold is tough, though I can't even imagine what you have to deal with as a sailor. Like, do it in a way to where it sounds like a real sentence that someone would say, but give us the same information that way. That's how I would have done it. That's my personal opinion. So, to kind of get back on track, overall, I'm glad they did the retranslation, because it sounds to me, from what I've seen, that like the original script was very kind of basic, didn't have a lot of personality, and I felt like they really improved on it, but I still feel like it might have just been also just the characters as well. I think the characters, like, a lot of like, there's a character named Yurin who's like a soldier for I think it's the Ramen Army. He was kind of stylized as just sort of like a gruff guy. But I feel like a lot of characters had sort of like that I'm intelligent sort of diction and sentence structure. They sort of talked a little more elegant than they probably needed to. That's just my personal opinion. And again, I'm going entirely off of memory, but I remember thinking this with a lot of the characters, and that's one of the reasons why I kept Sahad in my party, because I really liked hearing him talk. I probably should have put Hummel on my team, since I liked hearing him talk too. But and the character Rakota, who I think you meet after this whole like murder mystery thing. But to get back on track and to kind of go back towards the dialogue choice thing and how the game fucking makes fun of me. There's this character named Kierkegaard who it's revealed that he was the murderer, because he's a psychopath. You talk to him, and he's all like, oh, I'm not a bad guy. I did medical work in Altago. And I'm thinking, like, Altago? I played East 7. I've been to Altago. And as far as I knew, I thought this game took place... This was before I understood that this game took place before E7. I thought it took place after, which I think probably would have been better off overall. I kind of want to see the story move forward, not necessarily go back. Of course, I don't know, maybe they felt like, well, he needs to have his armor, which I am glad that they gave the silver armor as DLC. I didn't use that through the playthrough. I was kind of treating it like Tales, where like I have everyone wearing like their regular clothes, but you know, it was still kind of nice to have. But anyway, so at this point, they gave you an option of saying like, I don't remember what they said for the first one, but the second one is like, oh, tell me about Altaga. And I'm thinking like, aha, I'm going to call him out on it, because I thought that East 8 was going to take place after East 7, not just on the grounds that, you know, 8 comes after 7, but that was just how I understood the story, because again, I didn't catch the hint with the sword. If I had played East 5, I might have, if I got that sword, but assuming they give it to you like they do in this one. I don't mean the specific sword. You actually can't get the Istios or Istios sword again, but you do get like the ultimate weapon for Adol near the end, and then they take it away at the very end. But I said like, oh, I picked, hey, tell me about Altago. I'm interested. And then Saha and Laxia were all like, maybe you guys can talk about Altago after we find the murder. I'm just like, you fuckers! I'm trying to bait him into being like, because I assumed that he hadn't actually gone to Altago, which it turned out that was true. So I'm like, aha, because Dogi brings up, hey, Altago is heavily guarded. Even Adol and I haven't gone there, which is another hint as to how this doesn't take place before E7, and is actually in between 5 and 6. There's more hints as to the fact that it taking place before 6, but I'm going to get to that as we get to more character stuff. And so that's sort of like the big red flag. So basically they call him out. There's a boss battle. A giant dinosaur guy called a Primordial comes in and eats him. Is like, what's with all these big-ass monsters? And so they go through, and they're trying to sort of... obviously they're trying to get off the island. I don't know if I ever said that, but they are trying to get off the island. And they get to a point where they have to go... past this giant mountain and get to the other side, which they do. And all this time, like, Adol is having dreams, and it gets to a point to where the dreams are going forward, and it gets to a point to where the dreams he's having are of the girl as like an adult. Donna is what her name is. So you actually get to play these scenes and see like this other area, this kingdom called Eternia, you know, kind of like Tales of Eternia. And she's apparently some, like, priest of the world tree. I don't remember the actual term. It's not priest, I don't think. I might be... no, maiden of the world tree. So she is, like, she, like, is one of those people. She has magical powers, and she has these cool, like, curved swords. She's basically the alternative Adol, and I'll go into... She joins the party, but I'm going to get more into why. And basically... she's able to help Adol, because she's starting to have dreams about Adol too, which is kind of funny. It's like, it's almost like, you know, each section is like, oh, Donna's dreaming about Adol, now Adol's dreaming about Donna, you know, all that stuff. But what ends up happening, or what ends up being a thing, is that Donna can help Adol by planting these like prayer trees that like will do stuff like in the future. Like there's this one where like I think, like, they didn't have a way to get down to, like... Because once they get past the mountains, they see the ruins of Eternia. And then it really, like, okay, so what Adol's seeing about Donna's in the past. Which, that's kind of interesting. I think that's an okay way to do it. I was actually kind of expecting them to do sort of like, oh, Eternia's like this, you know, lost city of Atlantis kind of thing. And I thought that would have been kind of interesting. I could have swore I saw in, like, a gameplay trailer Donna... being with her friend Olga, and maybe even her other friend Sarai, though why Sarai isn't there makes a little more sense now that I've actually played the game, but, you know, we'll get there. And, of course, Olga kind of makes a little bit of sense, too. And so, they, and this little prayer tree, like, makes, like, a little, in the future, makes, like, this giant, like, bridge that they can, like, go down. So, and this happens a few times. There's another one where they're trying to get to, like, the, to like this the center of the world tree, and the way they do that is that Donna has to, in the past, Donna has to use a prayer tree to like plant and prance one of those things, and then like it like basically holds up like the bridge structure to the place. So, you know, little things like that. So they get down to the ruins and they're like looking around. They notice someone is there, and they've been collecting these notes from some guy known as T, who has apparently been on the island for a while. They also figure out that this T person is Rakota's father. She joins the party after Hummel does, who, Hummel, to talk about him briefly, you know, like why I kind of thought he was going to be the alternative Adol, was mainly because of his job title. He's a transporter. And that that's sort of like that job title kind of made me think like, oh, he's the alternative Adol. Obviously, it's a Donna, but we'll go more into that later on. So they find T. His name is Thanatos, and he's all like, "Sup, I'm Thanatos. Hey, you want to come back to the Castaway Village? Sure. Hey, I've been having these dreams about this girl named Donna." It's like, oh, sweet dog. I think they might even imply that he was having those dreams too. I don't remember. I think it's just Adol. I don't think they ever really fully explained why Adol himself was having the dreams. They get to a point to where the entire party can see Donna's memories, and that's how they're able to that's how they're sort of able to save time a little bit. Because at first the game definitely makes use of the whole Adol explain to everyone, which unfortunately they don't have that narrator guy back, which is kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. And so Thanatos is all like, hey Adol, I want to show you something. I'm not going to tell you what, but you just got to see it, dog. It's over here at the base of the World Tree. Or the Great Mana Tree, I should say. It's not the World Tree. I guess it is technically the World Tree. But they go there. And it turns out that Donna is there in suspended animation in like a fucking tree thing. And they're able to break her out, and she is all awake and shit. So she's in modern times, dog. Or I say modern times, but she's in the present time, and she doesn't have her memories. So she actually joins the party, which I thought she would, and I felt like it makes sense for her to. Again, she's the alternative Adol. She uses for this version, when you go to the past, you unlock different forms where she basically uses, you know, the Pierce type and the Bash type. Like in her Bash type, she turns a green and gets a big hammer. In her Pierce type, she turns a yellow, and she has like a little like daggers thing she just pokes them to death with, so she basically goes like Super Saiyan or something. And she actually does kind of look like she goes Super Saiyan, which is funny. But you can just like poke endlessly, and like, and it's kind of fun. So she joins the party, and I guess you could say she's kind of like, because one thing I've noticed about Ys after playing a few of them is that there are it seems like they always have like that blue-haired girl. I don't think every game has this, but it always seems like, because I remember in Ys-7 there was that blue-haired chick who I believe ended up being the antagonist. I don't think I ever reviewed Ys-7. I know I did for the podcast, but I didn't. I didn't on the channel. I don't know if I ever will. If you want me to, I can, but I have to probably replay it. And then obviously from what I saw of Ys-6, there were the two sisters, Olha and I don't remember her the younger sister's name. I might even be getting them confused. But of course, I think there's Rena and Fina in Ys 1 and 2. They're also the blue hair peeps. I don't remember the name of the chick who was the blue hair chick in Ys-7. I don't think Memories of Celceta had one. But I do find it kind of interesting that like they seem to like to pair up Adol with like blue hair chicks, and of course Donna's here. She's almost low key a main squeeze for Adol. I sort of ship him with Laxia more than I do him with Donna, but you know, that's just my personal opinion. So she joins the crew, and so now, as well as trying to like map the area and find a way to get off the island, which unfortunately 3 castaways have died. They think Sir Carlin is dead. And I know I'm kind of gunning ahead of myself and spoiling a little bit, but he's presumed dead because he tries to escape, but the giant like sea monster gets him. So that's another thing they have to worry about. Like, even if they can finish the boat, they have to figure out how do we handle that monster. And then 2, Captain Barbaros actually dies, which that one seemed a little anticlimactic, because an artery in his leg gets like severed, so he's like, oh, I can't do anything. And I understand that like on an island there's probably not a lot you can do, but really just a leg injury like that, I don't know too much about body stuff, frankly. Or at least I forgot in school, so I don't know. But he passes. Kiergaard is obviously killed. I was low-key expecting them to like bring him back. Of course, obviously the enemy is not really a specific person, but more of an idea. Hint, hint. So a few characters have passed, and there's this little girl who wears Captain Barbaros's jacket. I think her name's Queena. She joins the crew, and she's kind of cool, I guess. So we've already lost a few castaways, and so now what we're trying to do is map the island so we can kind of get around and for resources and whatnot, and also sort of a reason to have you explore. You know, build a boat, which they end up doing. and then also fight this sea monster, which that's a major part. And I think chapter 5, this game is broken up into chapters. There are 6 chapters in total, technically 7 because there's an epilogue. I don't know if the epilogue is unlockable, because there are actually more endings. I think there are actually 3 endings in total. I'll go into which one I got as we get to that point. But basically, and they're also trying to figure out, basically what I was getting is, along with all those things, they're also trying to figure out why did Donna lose her memories, and also what happened to the Kingdom of Eternia. It's definitely one of those things where Adol kind of gets himself into trouble here. Like, Dogi's all like, man, you always get us into trouble. And he's also all like, it's not the craziest thing I've heard. Like, Dogi kind of straight faces everything, and so I like that because that was sort of like a nice little nod to all the little adventures they've had, as well as the ones they're gonna have. Dogi kind of throws like, this might be our toughest adventure yet, which I know for the sake of this game being the new game, it's like, oh yeah, we have to make it seem like it's the biggest deal, which in a way it kind of is, especially what comes up, but it kind of is sort of retreading what I remember from E7 in terms of what the major conflict in the end is, because basically the world is in peril, to put it simply, because as they go through, they find out that a bunch of meteors fucked up Eternia, and then a giant fog came in, and Donna makes it to like this one point where she fights this weird looking primordial. She calls them Saurians, which that was actually kind of cool, how they have like different terminology for things like Saurians. She uses this, also has like this energy called essence. I think that's mainly just to kind of make Donna seem a bit more powerful, and then to give her sort of like this, like, oh, she's this high maiden priest chick, because as far as I know, characters having essence isn't really like something that's noticed. In fact, they have this thing called psyche that they bring up. I say thing called psyche, but psyche's like a real word. And so basically, they've learned that like, hey, these meteors are like destroying the place. What the hell's going on? And throughout this section, like in the past, that you see that like a lot of people end up hating Donna, except for like her close friends. Like there's this guy named Rastal who's pretty cool. His dad was fucking awesome. Dran, I think his name was. He was fucking cool. Like he looked so bad. Like, can you join the party, please? Rastal's okay as well. Also, where you see the character I mentioned before, Io. She's exclusive. I think she's actually a secret boss, if I'm not mistaken. But she's pretty cute. She's waifu number 2. But Kathleen, I think, is best waifu. And also Olga. Like, she's pretty supportive. But basically, everyone's giving Donna shit because it turns out, I think they actually figure this out or something. But basically, or I think what happens is like, oh, all this bad stuff happens, and Donna, the Maiden of the World Tree, didn't do shit. Fuck you. But it actually turns out that the World Tree was the one who fucked things up. It turns out there's this thing called the Lacrimosa. Huh? See? Bringing it back to the title. And I think it's called like Evolution and Rejection, I believe. Or Selection and Rejection. And there are these wardens that you meet. This guy called Minos, who's like a Minotaur guy. Nestor, who's like this, apparently a bug chick. I thought she was like a sea creature, but the sea creature is actually a character named Hydra. And this other masked character named Ura, who's Cloden. Their identity is not known, though Donna does kind of figure it out. And I had some speculation later on, like as I saw, like, wait a second. But we'll get to that later. And so it turns out that these people, these are like these wardens. They don't do anything. They're basically just kind of here to sort of. It's kind of interesting. They're sort of the antagonists, but they're not really, because one, they kind of help the party, and you do kind of have to fight them near the end when you're trying to like gather up the psyches to like do things. But they're all like, yeah, if you want to try, you can, but we wouldn't. They're sort of like, it's useless to resist. Just join us, that kind of thing. And they wanted Donna to join because she was actually picked to be the one to witness this travesty, which is basically the World Trees being all like, fuck these people, I'm going to kill all of them. Basically killing all of civilization so that evolution can start up and be all like, hey, here's some new creatures that are maybe better. And then they decide, like, if they decide, like, hey, we don't like them, they do it again. Basically, and it takes, like, several... It's one of those things where it takes... it's over the course of, like, several years, I think. Like, I think it takes, like, several years before everything to kind of happen. But as you go through the past, you see it get worse and worse and worse, and even the music changes, obviously. But, like, it gets kind of sad when you think about it. So that's basically what happens. And basically, Donna and Olga are trying to, like, kind of figure things out. And they have another friend named Sarai, who ends up being the queen. All three of them were sort of like in competition to become the maiden. Donna won out. Olga became like the second in command or something to Donna, and Sarai goes back home, and then it turns out she's actually the Queen of Eternia now. So she does stuff. She oddly disappears when the Lacrimosa actually starts, and Ura shows up. So it turns out that Ura is actually Sarai, which that raises some questions in of itself. Like, okay, well, what exactly is her relation to the Warden's thing? Because if Donna was chosen to be the one to sort of witness her entire world dying, and she becomes like immortal, so like she can't die, so she'd have to like continue living knowing that her civilization was dead. And if she were to become a warden and like watch all these other civilizations, she would have to watch these other civilizations go. So it'd almost kind of be like if you're watching a movie and getting attached and like everyone dies at the end or something, which that would be kind of sad. But she doesn't want to be a warden. Sarai's all like, hey, be a warden. And she ultimately decides to off herself, or she tries to. She even does like the thing where like she takes like her two fingers and like does like a kablammy gun to the side of her head. But she's trying to kill herself by like shooting essence at her. And what she ends up doing is like enclosing herself. So she basically locks herself in place to keep her from going anywhere, to try to help the good guys. That's basically what she's going for. They kind of imply that she has other knowledge, and I think near the end she sort of acts on it too. Like, that's one thing I also kind of know, because once they figure out what they need to do, even then, like, Donna's all like, like she kind of knows what's going to happen. And this is actually kind of, this isn't like E7 to where it's like, the world is trying to kill itself, but just in case they change their mind, Adol's the chosen one, kind of thing. That's one of the things I remember from E7. Here, it's like humanity going against fate, and Adol is actually chosen to be the one to watch, the humans die. He becomes one of the warden candidates, kind of going along with the whole humanity going against fate thing. And the wardens actually show up to them, and they're all like, hey, this is what's happening. You're all gonna die. Just join us, Adol and Donna. And they're like, fuck no. They're like, oh, okay. Well, if you want to stop it, you can. Like, again, like, I feel like the wardens, they're not really the antagonists. Like, obviously, the antagonist is the Lacrimosa. I was low-key expecting them to do a thing where it's like, oh, you have to fight Donna. She's the real antagonist. Or I don't know. Or I was even expecting maybe Kiergaard to come back. Like, I think I mentioned that. But, yeah, the wardens, you do fight them, because what you end up having to do, they're like, hey, well, one way you can stop the Lacrimosa is by doing the this tree thing I think it's Baja Tower or something, or not Baja Tower. There's this like facility you can go to where like this tree can like help shit. It's like it can like give you like a really powerful essence to like really make a lot of changes to stuff. And what happened was that these essence, like the will of the people, their psyche got absorbed in like these little thingies, and so they're like sealed away. So like the world and all the worlds don't have enough psyches to like supply this like tree with enough essence or whatever to like do whatever it is it needs to do. I'm trying to kind of keep it sort of secret, because basically what happens, I'll go ahead and say, basically what happens is it gives Adol like a powerful sword. I think it's called like Mistolin or something. It's a pretty cool sword. It almost kind of seems like it takes away the weapon types. I know in the post-game dungeon that you can get by beating, or the clear data dungeon, you can actually get medals that change the character's type. I don't know if it's something you have to equip or something that you just have, and then like, hey, any character can now use any weapon type, so you can basically do whatever you want. Because they do, that is also a character from E7, Memories of Celceta. Here, I felt like it's sort of like an in-between. Like, if E7 forces you to do it and Memories of Celceta doesn't, this game doesn't really force you to do it, but it does want you to do it. And, like, characters will be like, I'm counting on you, Adol. Like, do this, Laxia, and, like, to let you know, like, hey, you need to use this character. This game is actually pretty chatty. Like, oh, there's something there, and you have to, like, fight a beehive to, like, get some honey, or, oh, here, there's a crew barrier. Like, that looks delicious. Like, we can finally rest at a save point. Stuff like that. This game is very chatty. And so basically what they have to do to get back on track, they have to like release everyone's psyches. Even with the castaways knowing, it's still enough. I think kind of what they sort of imply is that like in order for the reason why, or the way I took it is that the reason why the modern humans' psyches are not enough is because not everyone knows. I think that's kind of part of it. And so basically you have to go to like these different periods, and there's a watery level, and then there's sort of like an icy cave level, and then there's a sort of like a foresty level where you fight Hydra, Minos, and then Nestor respectively. And not them, but like their psyches, it looks like them. They bring like, hey, that looks like so and so. So you have to fight them, and that's I thought that was actually kind of, I was wondering if you were gonna fight them. They look cool too, so you fight them. And they do a little dialogue like, I didn't want to actually give into the Lacrimosa, so I'm kind of, I empathize with you, but like, damn, it's going to bring you to the spears and shit. And they're like, fuck that noise. And then, in the end, you go to like the sky area where you fight the psyche of Ura. And there it's revealed, or I should say Sarai, but there it's revealed that the Sarai that Donna knows is actually not the real Sarai. It turns out and I think they even bring this about like, oh, Sarai's like super sick, and all, and then like, oh, it's a miracle that she survived for all her sickness and shit. But it turns out that Ura is actually a like an alien that can like mimic people, and so what she did to kind of, I think her plan was like she was trying to kind of lead humanity into the idea of the Lacrimosa a little more, or have like more power or something. So she basically copies Sarai, her like image and personality, and basically turns into Sarai, because the original Sarai died as a child due to sickness. So yeah, that'd be kind of interesting to hear sort of that story or whatever. But I don't remember her exact reasoning for doing that, but that's what she does. She sort of replaces Sarai. And even Donna keeps calling her Sarai, even though her name is fucking Ura. But so you fight her, and then they're like, okay, you've got all the psyches now to fight the Lacrimosa. Is basically what they're doing. So they get the sword, and then they go into the core of the Lacrimosa, where they fight this giant fucking dragon thing. It's called like Theos de Ingra, and something like that. It's a cool looking thing. The bosses in this game they're pretty cool. Like none of them are really that hard. I only died like a couple of times. I think one was to that final boss, and another one was to like another thing. I also lost a raid because I was just pretty underprepared. Thankfully, I grinded a little bit and I was able to win. And thankfully, like if you do lose a raid, it doesn't really do anything. You lose out on getting like a really high score and getting cool items from it. The raids are actually a cool way to like get items and like resources and stuff, and you can also fish, and that's a good way. There's this bird chick named Shoebill that you can give fish to and shit, and you can use fish in cooking, I think. I don't remember. You can get different things from fishing. You can also get treasure from fishing. It's a nice little thing. There's even a spot where apparently like it's like a really good spot to fish, like up in the sky. It's like a little giant water petal or something. But So they basically go and they fight the Lacrimosa and shit, and they beat him up and all. And then Sarai comes back, so like, oh, you killed the Lacrimosa, now the world is dying. Because what they basically did was, like, it's one of those things where it's like they probably shouldn't have done it, but they're going to do it anyway because they want to live. And I thought that was actually a pretty good story thing. I feel like this Ys game is pretty different than most of them. I'm of the mindset that if, for example, if the Tales series is all about the characters, I'd say the Ys series is all about the setting. Like, I really feel like that's where the Ys series shines. Like, you know, that's one thing I really remember from Memories of Celceta. I really felt like I got a sense of, like, the different cultures, like, especially Ozma's village. And I kind of remember that a little bit from Ys 6 from what I've played. You know, you get a real sense of the village. Ys 3 and Wanderers from Ys and, like, Oath and Felghana, like, you get a real sense of the area you're in. That one's a little more contemporary, I think, in terms of, like, where they are. Redmont and Felghana and shit. That was also kind of character focused. Altago, that had a very, it was actually kind of similar a little bit to in terms of, because like I felt like Altago had a very like islandy sort of feel to it, whereas obviously this one, you know, takes place on an island. There are a lot of like tropical things. I feel like in this one the setting was kind of toned down a little bit, and I think it is more about the characters. So I guess you could say it's more like Ys 3 in that regard, and that it's more focused on the characters and less about like this giant culture that, you know. And I will say this, I do prefer the culture side of things with Ys, and that it's more about the setting, but I understand why they wouldn't want to do that. But basically, to get back on track again, Adol and the gang have basically doomed the world, more or less. And Donna's all like, wait a minute, no, I won't let that shit happen. And so Adol wakes up and he's all like, whoa! And Lexi's like, hey, you know, the ship's done. And Adol's all like, yo dog, what happened to the Lacrimosa? And Lexi's like, the Lacro, what's it? Where's Donna? Who the fuck is Donna? And it's like, everyone but Adol's forgotten about the Lacrimosa and Donna. And he talked to everyone, and it's all like, oh man. And even Sahada's all like, but you can tell, like, I feel like we're forgetting something. Like, Sahada's even all like, man, the 6 of us were pretty cool. Or, did I say 6? I meant 5. And they all sort of, like, they sort of have, like, lingering memories. Yeah, so, and then Adol's all like, well, geez, no one remembers them, but I'm gonna go check, you know, the World Tree. And he goes there, and, he sees like this little flower thingy. It's like orange tree, and like it looks completely different. Like then everyone says like, I feel like this looks different than what I remember. And then their little parrot friend Pero comes up, and it turns out Pero was the fucking goddess Maya the entire time. They talk about like the different gods at one point, and it turns out Pero was Maya. And I think this is where kind of the different endings sort of come into play a little bit. I think I got the normal ending. They call it End 2. I'm guessing that's the normal ending. I'm guessing End 1 is the bad ending, then End 3 is like the great ending or something. Basically what happened, as Maya explains, is that in order to save the world, Donna sort of like overrode herself to like stop the Lacrimosa from like fucking shit up. But Maya had to Maya erased her and like rebuilt the world. So Maya like sacrificed herself. And that kind of goes back into the title a little bit, which is, thinking about it makes me wonder like if this is really like an ending difference. But like maybe because like the title of the game is The Lacrimosa of Donna, which we learned that the Lacrimosa is basically the culling, the removal of something. So this game is calling it is basically saying, you know, Donna's gonna die. Or she's gonna get erased. Like, she gets erased completely. My first thought is that maybe the bad ending is that this still happens, but either this happens and nobody remembers Donna, even Adol doesn't, or it all, like, goes to shit and, like, everyone dies. I don't know. But, I imagine the good one is maybe, like, I haven't seen this, so I'm just guessing, but maybe like Sarai is all like, wait, even I'm calling her Sarai, or Udo, whatever you want to call her, like, I'll be the one to sacrifice the world, or sacrifice myself to save, and then Donna, she's able to stay alive. But then she's like, I'm going to stay on the island and rebuild the world or something, which is kind of sad. It's like, I don't have a reason to be here. I feel like she's probably going to die either way, because I feel like, you know, they would have to explain why she wasn't in E6 at all. Thinking about it, I feel like they're gonna have to explain how Terra shows up, because I think she's also from E5. You know, they might have, you know what, thinking about it, they are probably using this game to explain why she's so old. Because she's a lot older than in East 5. And when she shows up in East 6, she's like a teenager or something. So maybe they're trying to use this as sort of like, you know, explain what happens. But basically the game ends, like, it shows the boat in the nighttime, and Adol and Dogi are just like looking out, being like, sup. And that's the end of the game. Overall, I liked it. I already talked about some of my complaints. I feel like the script had some issues. Mainly, Rakota, again, it makes sense why she would talk this way, but I feel like she needs, even though she, like, is really well read, she shouldn't talk like. I liked how she said tally ho. She's like, tally ho. I took a screenshot. I took a lot of screenshots of this game. But I feel like, you know, she should have maybe tried to talk a little more like a kid. Maybe that was the intention. Maybe like, oh no, that's not good. Sahad, Hummel, and Dogi were probably the most interesting characters to listen to. But even despite that, I felt like the voice acting helped things a little bit. I thought everyone sounded good. I didn't think there were really any weak-sounding characters. Hummel sounded kind of quiet now that I think about it, though I did lower the music. Though, speaking of which, the music is, you know, your typical awesome Issa fare. I thought it was really good. It kind of sounded more like they were kind of dipping more into the non-violent stuff. And I also don't really like the opening theme that much. I like it in the context of the game, but as an opening theme and just like a song to listen to, I'm not really into it. I still say my favorite opening theme is probably still the Silseta one. Unlike Silseta, even though they're both anime openings, but this one is an actual, like, regular anime opening, instead of being like that, like, still thing, like moving still images. Yeah, this one's an actual, like, legit anime opening. I thought that was kind of cool. The art looks really nice, and the character art, I thought, was pretty stylized. Whenever they would show, like, 2D art, I thought it looked pretty good. And I like the use of the costumes. From what I've heard and seen, there aren't too many costumes. You get, like, unique costumes for everyone. Like, Adol has the most costumes. Obviously, you know, he's got his adventure clothes that he wears sometimes, like in the first two East games, assumingly what he wears generally. He also had the silver armor, which I know is going to make a lot of classic E fans, such as East fans like myself, happy. I actually thought that was really cool. Though, in one of her friendship rating things, Rakota gives you a necklace. And I thought, oh, it would be really cool if, like, I wore the silver armor and then had the necklace over his like turtleneck thingy, but it actually gets covered by the silver armor. So that's unfortunate. I actually think it looks pretty good if he wears, like, his sailor costume, which actually changes his mugshot and, like, his icon in the menu, which is pretty cool. He apparently has art for his silver armor. I'm a little surprised they didn't think to give him that kind of art, but in, like, the game, like, because if you equip that armor, he's still wearing, like, his regular, you know, in-game outfit, which I'm okay with them giving Adol, like, no, like, redos on his armor, if it makes sense in the context of the story. But, like, if they remake East 5, for example, which I think they might, I do hope they give him the armor again. I understand for East 4 why he shouldn't have the armor, and I actually thought he looked good, but there was still that part of me that's like, you know, he looks great, he looks really cool, but I do miss that armor. Like, I think he looks really cool. I think it'd be kind of cool if they maybe go back to the sword and shield. We'll have to see kind of how things go, because this game is is sort of a shift in the style a little bit. It definitely kind of feels a lot more like it's sort of leaving the action RPG thing that E7 and Silseta set up, and it's trying to kind of go back to that whole platforming thing. Though again, I think it would have been a lot better if they actually let you jump around more. And there weren't really too many platforming areas. I know for one of Hummel's quests where you have to deliver an egg back to its nest, there was some platforming there, and that was actually kind of fun. And I found it was really fun to like jump off of high spaces and just continuously do the roll, so you could kind of like glide around. That's a good way to sort of like get places. And you know, climbing was okay because you could climb a little bit. But yeah, that's probably the one thing I think they should fix in future Ys games with the jump mechanics, should they keep it. I think they should make it to where you should be able to do more jumping. I'm not expecting like something like Breath of the Wild to where you can literally climb over the entire area. But I think like, you know, basic stuff like being able to jump off cliffs where there's like an area under there, like do like a little shortcut. That would depending on where you are, that probably would require them to sort of like load both areas, which that might be kind of the reason why they didn't do that for certain areas. But like also jumping off of like railings where like you're not even, where like there's like another ground level right below you that's not even that far, so you're not going to take like major fall damage. In fact, I don't even think Adol takes any fall damage in this game. But I'll have to test and see. In fact, I think a lot of times it's just like it fades into like another part of the area. I'll have to check again. But you know, it's pretty it was still kind of cool to sort of be able to jump around and stuff. I really like jumping in games, if you didn't already know. And I feel like with Ys, like again, I feel like I really liked it when it was sort of like a platforming RPG, with like Oath and Felghana, Ark and Nepetium, and then Ys Origin. Two of those games I haven't finished yet. I finished Oath and Felghana. You guys have seen that review already. But I hope if they're going back to that, which I kind of hope they are, because I actually really enjoyed this gameplay style. I feel like they finally kind of, you know, really hit a good spot. I don't want to say made the proper transition from 2D to 3D, because, you know, this Ys series, it's changed a little bit. The general idea of it hasn't changed, of it being like an adventure action RPG that focuses on the setting primarily, with a good emphasis on the characters as well. Again, this one was kind of focused on the characters. In fact, Griselda from Memories of Celceta, who I think was like the captain or like the head general of the Ramen Army in Celceta, she shows up, and so that was kind of cool. Her and the other character, Urine, the guy I talked about earlier, both of them reference a certain individual in the Ramen Army that is keeping tabs on Adol. I think they're talking about Ernst, because although I haven't finished E6, I am aware of Ernst. I've heard the song, because I'll eventually have to do like a My Ys history at some point if we ever get far enough in. But yeah, basically, my first exposure to the series was Ark and Nepetium, and I played the demo on like one of the official US PlayStation Magazine demo discs, and a friend of mine, I showed it to him, and he actually, I think, rented the game and played through the entire thing, and he showed me Ernst, so I know about Ernst, and like his angel wings and whatnot. I think he showed me the final boss too, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember, but I looked at just to kind of like, are they like, who specifically are they referring to? Because I'm thinking like, are they trying to tease like something in a future Ys game, or are they talking about, like, are they trying to like hint something? And so I looked it up, and it turns out Ernst is of the Ramen Army. So I think they're referring to Ernst. I think they're just trying to sort of like tie, I don't want to say set up, because I doubt they're going to make a remake of E6. I mean, I guess they could. I'd be a little disappointed if they did. But I think they're trying to set up, or rather, do a little nod to E6 for those who have played it yet. I'm thinking of, I'm kind of gotten a bit of an Ys mood, so I might play E6. I need to finish Origin as well. The ones I haven't finished are Ys Origin, Ys 1 and 2, which for those of you who don't know is 2 games in 1. Then Ys 5, and then Ys 6, the Ark and Nepetium. So I might play one of those, probably Ys Origin, because I'm the furthest in that one. And I played a little bit of Ys 5 because I know a fan translation came out for that a while ago, and I think that one might be kind of fun. I might I don't know if I want to wait for a remake, so I might go ahead and get the Super Famicom version, like just buy a legit card of it, because I like to do that with my fan translation games. I like to get like the actual original game as well. But yeah, like I thought that was kind of interesting. They went ahead and threw in what I assume is an Ernst reference. And Urine, he brings up like the different like I think he says Asteria, Felgana, and then I think he says Silseta. I guess he doesn't know that Adol's been to Xandria as well. Or that could also maybe be interesting. That's actually kind of interesting how I didn't realize that they didn't bring that. I don't think they brought that up. I'd have to look back because I remember I took a screenshot of that. I took a screenshot of a lot of things, which I'm thankful for that screen capture screenshot feature on the PS4. And I like the Switch version better because it's really quick. Like with the PS4, it takes a little bit and it is like a little thing. But yeah, overall, I liked this game a lot. I got into the story. I feel like it almost kind of felt a little Talesy because it was more focused on the characters, whereas again with East, I feel like the focus should be on the setting with a little bit of a focus on the characters as well in plot. But I like the characters, even though I feel like a lot of them kind of had like sort of too neutral diction and speaking styles. I felt like I really got to know them, or at least sort of got to know them, and enjoyed talking to them and whatnot. I think I forgot to mention that Sir Carlin does survive, and even he kind of has sort of like that hey, I'm not so bad moment. Kind of not as it wasn't as well done as Leo in Memories of Celceta, but he does show like yeah, even he's not a terrible person. Like he sort of shapens up a little bit near the end when he comes back after you find him. But yeah, and other character interactions were pretty good. Like the stuff with I think her name was Queena, the little girl who wears Captain Barbarossa's jacket. That was really cute. Like there's a scene near the end where or not near the end, but like in one of her like little cutscenes, she kisses Adol on the cheek, and I thought that was really cute. And of course, anything with Adol and Dogi is awesome. And I like Hummel and Saha, and like I liked a fair amount of characters. And like I said, Kathleen is my #1 waifu. EO is my second waifu. I'll have to go see what she's up to in the past, because I think that's one thing that's also kind of cool. They do let you go back into the past as Donna at like different points, and that's kind of cool. And you can unlock like a little dungeon. I think you have to actually unlock the complete dungeon in the past to get the post-game dungeon. I might actually try that. We'll see, because I'll probably be playing this game a little bit since there's a little bit of space in between like the next game, which I think at this point is Warriors of Orochi 4, and then of course Soul Calibur 6 is coming out like shortly after, so I'm probably gonna have to dip into that a little bit. But anyway, to get back on track, yeah, I liked the characters. I liked the setting a little bit. I wasn't too big into it like I was with Celceta and what I've seen of the East games I haven't finished, and E7 was pretty okay, and Felgana I feel like not so much, but you know, it's that one's definitely more about the characters. So this game seemed like kind of a good mix of the two. The island setting was pretty cool, and I liked the the village thing. I think it would have been kind of cool if they let you customize it a little more. And it's almost like sort of like a building thingy. And the raids are fun because that's a nice way to sort of go back and do some fighting if you just want to fight some enemies, or if you want to gather materials without having to go too far and like grind level. I don't think you can actually gain levels in that mode, but you can get some, like if you just want to practice on enemies, or if you just want to fight things, you can. The music was pretty good, except for the opening theme I think was a little weak. The voice acting was good, visuals were good, graphics were done well. I don't know if many people have done any mods for the game, so I can't speak for that. In the PC version, though, it would be cool if like someone modded Dogi into the party. But I liked some of the extra stuff they did. I liked the jump mechanic. I liked the costumes, even though there weren't really too many. Because really, all it really amounted to was like, Adol had the most with like his regular outfit, his sailor uniform, his traveling clothes, and his silver armor, in addition to his palette swap, which is basically the cool fencer costume. I got a little disappointed there. But then also, I think everyone else just has like the palette swap. And Laxia, she has an Eternia costume, which you can also give her glasses as well. Like the customizations of the characters was a little small. I wasn't expecting it to be like Tales of Dress Up in like the Tales games or something, but maybe just some other costumes. It doesn't have to be much. The game was probably like, I think the setting kind of messed it up because like, yeah, there's not really a lot of reason as to why they would actually have different costumes. Though they could have done a thing where Adol finds his armor. Like that would have actually been cool. Like you can find his armor and it becomes his costume. Or you could even find that East 5 sword if you just want like a quick, I don't know. We'll see. That's probably what I would have done if they didn't want to include it as a DLC. Have it to where like you could find it drifting along. But yeah. Overall, I'd say it was pretty good. The only things I didn't like were the script. I thought was weak in a few areas, and I feel like some of the writing choices were a little weak. And I think the localization, while better, some characters again were a lot of characters still talked a little too neutral. I didn't like that you couldn't really jump all over the place, basically. But there are some things that you really should have been able to jump off of or jump through, and they wouldn't let you. The lack of customization with like costumes and whatnot, that would have been cool. Again, I understand why they probably wouldn't have wanted to do that, but I think that probably wasn't the case. And the opening theme, I think, probably could have used some work as well. But other than that, I thought the game was good. I'd give it, let's see, I think I'd give it maybe, I think I'm going to give it a 8.5 out of 10, or an 8.9 out of 10. So like it's pretty close to a 9. I don't know. I'm kind of in between an 8 and a 9. So I'd say like somewhere. So I'm going to say 8.5 out of 10. But definitely a good game, and definitely a good game to play if you want to get into the E series. Even if you want to go back, I definitely think it's good if you want to go forward, because I feel like this is probably going to be what it's like. But if you want to maybe, you know, play like Ark and Depistum or like East Origin or Oath and Felghana, and you want to kind of play something that's similar in general gameplay to this, this one's pretty good. Those games don't have the dodge, I don't think. They have the jump, but you can't like do the dodge roll and whatnot. But you know what I mean. But yeah, this was a pretty good game, and I would definitely recommend it to those who like Ys, action RPGs, good adventure stories, and anime games, and all that jazz. So yeah, thanks for watching. This is Flamsveronica Tasuke signing out. It was a good game.